Welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Osborn. And on this podcast, we interview successful business owners for them to share atomic, impactful lessons that they've learned in their business and career and share them with us as well. As always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everyone hates. We use this method to book 26 qualified leads and sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach, or endless social media posting. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn, and the link to that will be in the show notes below. On today's show, our special guest is Rhian Davies. She is the owner of Cariad Co, providing coaching, mentoring, strategic advisory for founders, entrepreneurs, and ambitious leaders, helping them to execute, operate at their highest level. So welcome to the show, Rhian. And I want to ask a question that I always start off with, and it is this question. If you were able to go back in time to when you started your very first business, what's the number one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
Oh gosh, that's such an easy one, actually. And it would be to just do it. Stop second guessing yourself, stop questioning whether or not you're good enough, stop worrying about what other people think. Everyone is far too consumed with themselves to really be worrying about you, and just go for it. I spent a long time in the early part of my business and with other businesses that I've kind of launched and then closed down along the way, really second guessing what I'm doing. So it'd really be get out of your own way, just get on and do it.
Yeah. That thing you said where people are always worried what other people are thinking about them.
Mm.
What are some key things that you found as you work with clients and maybe even in your own business, being worried about what other people think or what you're doing? Or because oftentimes as business owners, we have to kind of carve our own way. It seems counterintuitive than kind of the mainstream of thought oftentimes. So what are some key tips for entrepreneurs or business owners that may be dealing with that right now?
I think the biggest thing that you can gift yourself when it comes to worrying about what other people are thinking, or becoming overly obsessed about um, that fear of whether it be failing or judgment, whatever it might be that's kind of holding you back. Perspective. It would actually just be getting some perspective, because when we're in it, it's so hard to see beyond it. We're so blinkered by our own beliefs and our own thinking. We often need somebody to help us step outside of that to be able to start actually just thinking a bit clearly again. So for myself, I make sure that I have some counsel, whether that be in the form of some coaching or some mentoring, or just some friends that I can go to that are gonna, give me the truth and kind of tell me when I'm being stupid, just to help me with that perspective. And I think that's probably one of the things that I also bring to my client engagements, is that ability to help people step back and gain some perspective.
Yeah, yeah, really important. Because what I'm hearing you say there is get out of our own head,
Mm.
and those stories we create in our minds can often create an illusion of truth when really that's not the reality of that. Is there any particular example that you have in your own business where you've gone through a really big challenge and it seemed insurmountable at the time, but you've been able to get through that? And if so, what were those biggest lessons you've learned?
Mm. Gosh, so many of them.
Yeah.
I've been running my business now. I actually celebrate my 20-year anniversary next year.
Wow, amazing.
And it's, there have been lots of iterations along the way. Just for I've changed, the industry has changed, the world has changed. So there's been lots of different, I guess, pivots and challenges that I've come up against. And I think that the biggest one is, well, I mean, or one of the biggest ones was when I decided to start operating in a slightly different way. So I wanted to move away from offering, I guess, more group-led type things and just focus on more of the one-to-one.
Mm.
For no reason other than it just brings me more joy. I enjoy it more. We can go deeper. And I had a real blocker in my head that that just wasn't going to work. That, you know, the way that the world was moving, people wanted more community, they wanted more group kind of led things, they wanted things to be more affordable. So I mean, you can hear, even as I'm saying, I had all these stories in my head about why it wouldn't work, rather than thinking about actually why it might and all of the great things that I wanted to do. And the irony of it's not lost on me, because I obviously spend my time coaching others through all this sort of stuff. So it was really fascinating to sit back and observe myself actually playing out what I see a lot of my clients going through, and then helping myself navigate my way through that, actually using a lot of the, you know, the things that I might throw at clients to help them with that. But I would say that was probably one of the biggest challenges, because again, it wasn't anything external. I always think external things in many ways are easy to manage, because usually there are sort of other factors at play, and generally speaking, a lot of the time you don't control them. So you have to kind of let go and lean back. But when it's something internal, you are wholly responsible for that. And I think that's really hard, because it kind of begins and ends with you. So the success or the failure is kind of down to you, not really down to anyone else. And I think the biggest factor that probably moved me forward was, rather than waiting to be ready, or rather than focusing too much on the things that may or may not go wrong or may not be true, I actually just made a decision, which was that things were going to work out. Everything was going to be okay. This is what I wanted to do. And therefore I went and did it. And that sounds really simple. I've really simplified it. But ultimately, like most things, it's a choice. You know, feeling ready is a choice. Because actually being ready is not a feeling, it's just a decision.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And let's expand on that a little bit, because I think there's a lot of depth that we can go into this, that where you said you made a decision, you know, that sounds easy. And yeah, making a decision is easy, but once you've made that decision, what are the key components around sticking with it? Because there's going to be those challenges. There's going to be those days you're like, what the heck am I doing? Why did I do this? Why did I make this decision? Am I doing the right things? So once you've made that initial decision, what's important to bear in mind to make sure that you follow through with that until you see the actual outcomes you're wanting to have?
Yeah. So in no particular order, because I think that these things come up organically, and you might prioritize one over the other depending upon where you personally are. But I'll give you a couple of things that I think are true, and certainly things that I use as a way of helping myself and my clients. So I think the first thing is accepting that it's really got to be about progress over perfection. You know, so we often get so hung up on things being a certain way, and things being just so, that can often end up crippling us in actually just taking action and moving forward. So removing that perfectionism, if you can, and just thinking more about, is what I'm about to do next moving me closer to where I'm trying to get to, keeping me stuck where I am, or worse still, moving me backwards? And, you know, making your choice based on those things. I think the other thing, and by the way, a lot of what I'm talking about, this applies to something business related. This could apply to, you know, you're wanting to get fit, you're wanting to lose weight. It could apply to relationships. It's really universal. So the other part of it is actually reminding yourself, or getting really clear on why you're actually doing whatever it is you're doing in the first place. You know, Simon Sinek is really big on your why, and I'm really fascinated by the work he does, and I think he's got some really great things to say around that. And so I think reminding yourself why you're doing something, because look, there are going to be hard days, and there are going to be days when you don't want to do whatever it might be you need to do, even if it's something that you really want. You know,
Yeah.
even if it's something that you really want, sometimes you just for whatever reason, don't want to do it. So I think reminding yourself why, and then sucking it up. You know, sometimes there are things that we just need to do that we don't want to do. You know, health and fitness is a really big component in me operating at the level that I want to operate at, for example. This morning, it is a conditioning day. I don't enjoy conditioning. I lift heavy weights. I love doing that. But today is a conditioning day. And I didn't want to go and do conditioning today. But I know that ultimately, in me making the decision today to not go and do that, I'm not actually moving myself towards where I want to be. I'm not honouring the promise that I've made to myself that on a Wednesday, I go and do conditioning. And so therefore, I just sucked it up this morning and went and did it anyway. So I think sometimes, you know, we fool ourselves or fall into this trap of thinking that, you know, we should only be doing the things that we really enjoy doing, especially as a business owner, you know, because sometimes we kind of think, oh, well, you know, I don't want to do that. I just want to do all the things that I love doing.
Yeah.
And in an ideal world, wouldn't that be great? But that's just not how things work in life or business. So sometimes you just need to suck things up. So letting go of that perfectionism, reminding yourself of why you're doing something, and then sometimes just sucking it up and having the discipline to do what you know is ultimately right versus what you want to do in that moment.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of those things really come down to actually a lot of life philosophies as well. And these are some of the things that I talk to clients about and help clients with, because a lot of the time, it's actually how we lead ourselves that governs our success. You know, most people have the ability or the capability to be successful, whatever success means to you.
Yeah.
But the thing that often holds them back is the way that they lead themselves, you know, so the way that they show up for themselves on a daily basis, the way that they communicate, the way that they show up in relationships, the way that they handle difficult conversations. All of those things factor in to your ability to get towards the goals that you might have for yourself. And frankly, just lead a life that you really like and love.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So much in there. My biggest takeaway from this, and I think everyone will be, is sometimes you just got to suck it up, you know, which we know is true. And but sometimes it's always good to hear that repeated, and you know, hopefully listeners are listening to this or watching this will be able to go, you know, yeah, it's just I need to suck it up today, which is absolutely amazing. Well, very, very quickly, because we are almost up on time. What's the next over the next 1 to 2 years? What are your goals? What do you want to achieve in your business?
I've got so many things that I want to do in the next couple of years. And actually, you know, I think the biggest thing is that I really want to make sure that the business that I'm running is really simple. You know, over the last 20 or so years, I've done really complicated. I've had a team, I've had you know, a big team. And where I am today, I've really whittled it down so that there is me. And then there are a few key people that I pull in as and when I need them. So I want to, in 2 years' time, feel like I'm still running a business that feels light, fun, and effortless. But obviously wildly profitable,
Yeah.
which is the nice balance to have. And I'm still working with the people that I really enjoy working with, which is those founders, ambitious high performers, leaders, offering that advisory and coaching partnership that I offer. And continuing to live in the way I do, which is kind of a life without boundaries. And that is that I get to work wherever I want to work. I get to kind of locate myself wherever I want to locate myself. And really just continue doing the work I love in a way that allows me to honor how I want to live. Because like I say, my health, my fitness, my well-being, my relationships, those things are probably an equal priority to my business. And so it's about finding that balance and honoring it all. So if I can
Yeah.
continue to do that and still be happy and thriving in 2 years' time, then I'll be really delighted.
Yeah, that's amazing. So two big takeaways I hear from that is number one, suck it up and honor the way you want to live. I love that phrase. Really, really powerful. So if people want to find out more about you, Rihanna, what is the best, not Rihanna, Rihanna, what is the best way for them to contact you?
So you can find me over on LinkedIn. That's probably where I spend most of my time. Some of my clients will follow me on Instagram, but they will know that I am very intermittent with posting over there. But if you want to see some lifestyle stuff, you can find me on Instagram. Business stuff is over on LinkedIn. You can also go and check out my website, which has got some information on there about how you can work with me. And those are probably the best digital ways that you can contact me. If you happen to be in Bali at any point, or London, or even Dubai, then drop me a message if you fancy grabbing a coffee, because I'm always up for meeting interesting people.
Amazing, amazing, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. And as a reminder for everyone, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everyone hates. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn, have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn, and that will be in the show notes below.